In a dramatic escalation of its conflict with the Australian government, Facebook has blocked all media content in the country. Australians woke up to an empty news feed on their Facebook timeline today after the social media giant escalated its dispute with the Australian government over paying for content produced by news outlets. The Australian government has been quick to react, calling the move heavy-handed and wrong.
Facebook was wrong. Facebook's actions were unnecessary. They were heavy-handed and they will damage its reputation here in Australia. Their decision to block Australians' access to government sites, be they about support through the pandemic, mental health, emergency services, the Bureau of Meteorology, were completely unrelated to the media code, which is yet to pass through the Senate.
Meanwhile, the localised ban has affected several Australian emergency services. Pages that carry warnings about COVID outbreaks, bushfires and cyclones have been rendered blank. Fire, health and meteorological services around the country were also experiencing problems with their Facebook pages, which are regularly used to issue emergency warnings in the disaster-prone country.
The fact that there are organisations like state health departments, fire and emergency services and so on who have had their Facebook pages blocked, that's a public safety issue. I've spoken to Facebook this morning and said the government expects them to restore those pages as quickly as possible. There is great responsibility that comes with being a platform that, as the Digital Platforms Inquiry said, has over 17 million Australians visited every month.
Reactions have been pouring in after Facebook's move to ban news in Australia. Experts noted that Facebook never took a similar approach to misinformation and called the move reckless.
They put themselves at the center of people's digital lives. And so it was surprising to see them pull the plug on that so abruptly and so recklessly. And interestingly, this sort of response was never something that Facebook considers to misinformation, but it is something it considers as a response to a legislative proposal in Australia. So would have been great to see, I think this is something people will really study for the coming years. I'm sure many theses will be written about it. And people will wonder why this didn't happen, with certain hate groups in other parts of the world, why there wasn't such an attempt to remove that content wholesale.
Others feel that the story is a bit more complicated than saying the big tech companies steal content from news outlets.
The story is a bit more complicated than just saying digital platforms kind of steal the content from news outlets and they benefit from it. It's kind of a mutual benefit. So then you probably would also need to ask whether news outlets would need to pay Facebook and Google for traffic that is brought through them to their pages. So it's kind of both sides benefit from that, and I don't think that's really reflected in the legislation.
Ordinary residents of Australia have also been left fuming at the ban. Let's listen in to some of the reactions coming in.
I think Facebook banning news is terrible, actually. I do use Facebook. It seems to be a catch-all, and I can get all of my news in the one spot, so it will really impact me.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think I'm a software developer, so I'm fascinated to see how the ban is actually affecting other sites that are getting crashed, and that bombs getting turned off and everything like that. Yeah,
they're so big and so widely used by Australians that people will just revolt against it. Like, honestly, especially the younger generation, there would just be chaos if they banned Facebook or Google.